And we are going live 4 minutes early.
Oh, we
Hey,
are? Okay.
everybody, and thank you for joining us for the 102nd week of the Free Assange Vigil. My name is Andrew Smith, and with me I have wonderful co host Misty Winston. We do have live UK guests on the ground right now, and we will get over to them in just a second. And I did just check to make sure I'm not muted. Um, so before we get into anything, though, I do want to run through the numbers. We did have one happy edition and one very, very scary edition in the last week now. So we have 3,840 days of illegal and arbitrary detention for Julian Assange. It's been 803 days since the WikiLeaks founder was trafficked from the Ecuadorian embassy after being sold to the US and the UK for a $4.2 billion loan from the International Monetary Fund to the nation of Ecuador. We have 166 days since Vanessa Baratzer's January 6th ruling denying Julian Assange bail, and or after denying Julian bail after personally ordering his release and no extradition on January 4th. We have 1,395 days of inhumane detention for alleged Vault 7 whistleblower Joshua Schultz. At least 967 of those days have been spent under special administrative measures. We have 802 days of political persecution for Ola Bini by the Ecuadorian government. The most recently horrifying addition to this list is Commander X. I think we're at about 7 days now since he was illegally taken from Mexico and renditioned to the United States. We have 11 days since whistleblower Reality Winner was moved to house arrest. Is expected to be free of monitoring after November 23rd, 2001. So we are super, super excited for her and her family to finally be back together. Two other bright spots in the world here. Chelsea Manning and Jeremy Hammond have both been free for a long time. Not a long time, but 475 days for Chelsea, 105 days for Jeremy. So I just want to say congratulations to Reality, Chelsea, Jeremy, but we still have a lot of work to do, especially with Commander X recently being taken. They do have a legal defense fund up, or like Help Me Defense Fund. If you visit, I think it's either Friends of X or Free Commander X underscore, one of the two.
There's a couple different ones. I can't remember which one's which now.
Yeah. I'll grab the link in just a moment and put it into
Okay.
chat for everybody. Um, but how are you today, Misty?
I'm doing well, thank you. I'm worried about X. Hearing he had his sister video like I guess like a message or a statement or whatever. He just wanted his voice to be heard. So she recorded him from jail, and he sounds sad and scared. And so if you guys are able to help with his defense fund or just like help spread the word about what's happening, please do so. I think they're using hashtag Free Commander X for the most part, or just Free X or Free Commander X now, that kind of stuff. So yeah, we need more people paying attention to that, I think, for sure. Are you putting it in the chat?
I'm looking it up still. I was just saying hi to everybody.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I mean, Steve is probably your best place for information on that. He's very close with X. He speaks with his sister frequently. So that's probably the best place to go for like constant updates on exactly what's happening, if there's any developments or whatever. But yeah, just try to talk about it more, get more people paying attention.
Yeah, so I'm pulling that link up now. There's two different Twitter feeds, so I want to make sure I get the right one. I don't want to.
Yeah, I know. I wasn't sure which one either.
Yeah, I think it's the one. Steve shares a profile picture with it, so I think.
Oh yeah, that's pretty dumb of us. We could have just gone to Steve's page.
I just dropped that in chat for everybody.
Sweet.
And that is horrifying news. We went over at length the article that came out about it. Steve did great coverage of it with the Anonymous Bites Back podcast, and have been staying on it ever since. So
there's a tweet storm. I just happened to be on Steve's page. There's a tweet storm. It looks like tonight at 6 Pacific, so 9 Eastern. So if you guys want, and the hashtag they're using is in fact hashtag free Commander X. If you go to Steve's page, they have example tweets. So it makes it really easy for you. You don't have to think of your own shit even. You can just use one of those tweets. Yeah, copy, paste, get the word out. So if you can participate in that, I'll retweet it too. And I can put it in the chat. That way everybody can see it.
So we don't have Snowden. I didn't even really think about it. We don't have Snowden in our numbers.
Oh, we don't. Yeah, that's weird.
Yeah, that'd be interesting to add. I gotta look up those dates.
Yeah.
But how are you, Allie? I'm so sorry for
Allie. Yeah, that was like a really rambly open.
No, it wasn't. That was perfect. And it's wonderful that you do the countdown because, like it's so important for people to know just how many days, without sunlight. And I saw a very good tweet today. Actually, I did it. A blade of grass. Julian would love to see a blade of grass. Yet in that, in that institution that that prison that he's in, they only have a little exercise yard, which is like a box with AstroTurf on it. And there's a sign, a gaslighting sign saying, enjoy the grass. So that's AstroTurf, the plastic. That's what we call it, AstroTurf, the plastic grass.
Yeah.
Do you call it that too? Yeah.
Yeah. Yep.
So yeah, it's total gaslighting, total torture. Yeah. So
it's terrible.
Hello from London. We're
Hello.
We're in the equivalent of Times Square. Got one of those sort of billboardy type things, changes. And we're under the statue of Eros.
For love and peace.
For love and peace. Oh, someone's put a thing here. And I'm here with one of our supporters. We do every Saturday at Piccadilly Circus under this Eros sculpture. And today was a brilliant day. Scotland won the football game. By football, it's soccer, what we regard as soccer in Australia and America, which I may as well just say America now because, obviously Australia's the 51st state. And they were like ecstatic because they beat England.
The old enemy.
So everyone was running around in kilts and saying free Assange.
I saw Daniel talking about that on Twitter. Yeah. It's like a big deal.
Back our streets finally. Because we've been under curfew for the
I've got Trevor here. I'm going to hand it over to him.
Okay.
He's one of our long-term supporters. He's been in it forever outside the Ecuador embassy, etc.
Hi there.
Well.
Hello.
Hi, how are you?
Good. Can you hear us okay?
Yeah, I can. Yeah. How's the weather over there? It's a bit cloudy and wet here.
It's a little cloudy here. Not too bad though.
Yeah,
okay.
Northern Ohio.
It's been raining
on and off for
like
a week and a half. So it's been like almost 90 and then like down to 67 and then like back up to the high 80s.
That's what's happened. We had a heat wave last week and it suddenly changed, as you can see above the clouds above you there.
Yeah.
So we're sort of getting speckles of rain at the moment, but we had real thunderstorms yesterday, and it was quite wet.
There was a tornado watch here yesterday for most of the day. Yeah.
Oh,
it's rare for Ohio, but we get them every once in a while.
Right.
So yeah, you were talking about the curfew. I wanted to ask you guys about that since we have you. Tell us what that's been like.
Well, it's been pretty miserable because our streets, we've had police, the sort of totalitarian order where if you demonstrate on streets, you'll be arrested and that kind of thing. So they've kind of eased off a little bit now. But for the last, I would say at least 9 months since last year, we've had pretty well a curfew that we could not demonstrate on streets. If we did, we'd be arrested and, charged with more or less like a criminal offense, for not abiding by government rules and regulations. So it's been a kind of a totalitarian state, which, has been pretty bad with this COVID-19 situation. But the real truth about it is that the government, it's divide and rule, divide us from the open world, and for us to not continue to demonstrate against any movement that is going on, the Black Lives Matter movement, the environmental issues, all that kind of thing we've had over here in the UK. And that's really taken us back instead of forward, because I think the most of the people here have been locked away as prisoners in their own homes. And it's been quite bad, because this so-called curfew has lost a lot of people's jobs, businesses, and it's taken away a lot of freedom of speech, freedom of democracy. If you really want to see the consequences of it, it's driven people to mental health issues, illnesses that they never had before. And, you know, we haven't moved on since then. We've managed to demonstrate now on our streets, or we've managed to take back our streets, but it still leaves very uncertainty amongst the public, that today you go to work, tomorrow you don't. You know, the rules keep changing from one day to another. But we still see that there might be another curfew coming up. As soon as we've got this summer over, I think probably it will, the government will impose some sort of other restrictions. At the moment, as you know, we can't travel in the red zone countries, but even that, you know, is questionable because it changes all the time. We've got this Indian pandemic at the moment, so flights and travel between the UK and India has stopped. So that's in the red light area. But many countries, such as Portugal, which was a green light about a month ago, and then the government changed it again to yellow. So these traffic light signals are absolutely confusing everybody, to be quite honest with you. We don't know where we stand on it, and
So
it's,
one of the
as I say, changes all the time.
one of the other things the UK is doing too, at least in London, to my understanding, is their low traffic neighborhoods or low traffic zones, where on top of imposing
Well,
curfews,
yes, they are creating traffic zones, extending traffic zones where, you know, they're widening the area outside downtown central London because of the pollution and that kind of thing. But, you know, the government is doing these things on one side, but not actually tackling the problem of global pandemic, which is, you know, we're getting environmental disasters here where there's uncertainty in our weather, and you know, we're dumping plastics, bottles, and recyclable goods to other countries, which is causing chaos in other parts of the world. And this has really been a scandalous rule with creating, you know, further environmental disasters around the world. So this is what the UK government are doing. They're shipping rubbish to other parts of the world, or garbage, and it's ending up at the bottom of the ocean. So this is another climate disaster. So I don't know, you know, why we're in this situation, but it's because we haven't got landfill sites here, and they're not using the recycling program to what it's supposed to be.
Yes. And
So-
well, and the pandemic thing doesn't even seem, at least here. I mean, you guys have, you know, your NHS. It's not
Yeah.
even about health here. It's, if it was, they would be making sure that we had, you know, at least Medicare for all or something. And instead they, you know, want to open schools. It's like they're telling everybody it's super dangerous, but then, oh, but we're going to
Yes.
open schools and capitalism's going to continue as usual. So
Yeah.
and then they get mad when people are like, what is happening here? Like, you still have elected officials going out to dinners and getting their hair done,
Yes,
and
absolutely.
Hawaii, but we're
Yes.
supposed to all shelter in place, and it's so
Double standards.
obvious. And it's
Double
very
standards.
obvious.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's one rule for them, one law for them, and one law for the rest of us.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm afraid it's not working because people are just so fed up with it. They're just going around with masks, without masks now. even on public transport where they're supposed to wear masks. We're not doing it. But at the end of the day, it's a political disaster. It's full of bureaucracy. One day you stay at home, next day you go to work. One day you travel, and the next day you don't. It's as I said before, it's double standards, totally hypocrisy. For one rule for them and one rule for us. But
could you talk a little bit about the way that the police are treating you guys and like overall right now? Because a few months ago, you guys were getting like chased around and like damn near.
Yeah, well, there's the police going there now, as you can see. So they're
Good
after
timing.
somebody. Yeah, but the police are there to protect. To be quite honest, they're not there to protect the public. They're there to protect the politicians and the establishment. And this is the corruption within even the police force. Murders that have knifing of youngsters and teenagers in this country is really getting quite serious. And the police are doing nothing about combating crime, especially amongst young people who've been, been sitting at home. They haven't been going to continue their education. And this whole hypocrisy of keeping people at home and not having a proper education. Parents can't go on with their work because they have to stay at home and look after children who've not been able to go to school and colleges. And, it's been a disaster and really a backward trend for the last year on the education.
Have they lifted the restrictions for like actual on the ground protests and the number of people and how often you're allowed to leave your home, or is it something that they're just in a period of not enforcing those kinds of restrictions?
No, we're not. We don't have a curfew at the moment to stay at home. No, we are allowed. They're lifting the sanctions slowly, but we will see some kind of change probably at the end or middle of July, where they let, because they're probably going on government recess, they're over summer holidays, so they'll open up everything. But for now, it's just sort of being cautious and doing as you're told. It's not been definite, and this is where the confusion comes in. As one day it changes for one thing negative, and then the next day it's something else. But parents are very frustrated that this whole situation is going on, and children have to, young students and people in colleges and university are finding it very difficult to catch up from a whole 18 months of wasted life,
Yes, and as a parent, I have to be a teacher now.
Yes.
I mean, my kids are like homeschooled, and I didn't sign up to be a teacher. I'm not qualified for that. I mean, I'm a pretty smart person, but I'm not qualified to teach my kids. You know what I mean? Like people, it's just, and it's bad. Like I worry about the fact that they're losing all that education and the social time too. The social time's really scary. Kids need to be social. They need to be around their peers. Of course,
mixing with their friends and mixing with other children and learning about their everyday experiences. They're not going to do that at home. I mean, you can teach them, of course, everyday habits and cleanliness and taking care of themselves, but they need to be amongst children of their own age, where they can have that freedom of learning together and having fun and being active with the outside world, rather than being stuck at home on the computer all day, because that's not going to teach you anything.
Yeah, online learning is tough. Online, especially for little kids, being in front of a screen all day long. No,
I mean, I myself, I sit behind a screen for 10 minutes and I'm totally bored because, it's not. Your eyes start burning and aching. You can't sit on there. You can't teach. And this whole concept of being, IT educated. Oh, if you need this information, you to go to www so-called on the website. I mean, people like to have that one-to-one contact, especially older people who are not IT numerate. They can't do things. They've got to get either their family or friends to do it for them. So it's not helping young and old, actually, to continue their daily lives.
Could you
It's
talk a
Yeah.
very
little bit
confusing,
about
very
your guys'
frustrating.
actions in Piccadilly today and what you
Pardon?
had planned and have done so far?
What'd you say, Andrew?
The actions that they're doing out in
Oh.
Piccadilly Square.
Yeah.
Well, yes, we are in Piccadilly at the moment. That's the centre of London. And yes, this is where we held our demonstrations. And a lot of the marches come through this area. I mean, you've probably heard of Trafalgar Square and Hyde Park. Well, we normally start these demonstrations as Hyde Park, and they come right through. We march through the centre of London. And a lot of the media is with us as well. You know, the BBC, the Sky News, and NBC, and CBS, and North American stations. So yeah, there has not been a demonstration today, but no doubt, you know, in the coming weekends there will be. We usually have these demonstrations on the weekend. But yeah, you know, we just have to continue to expose this government and the establishment, because none of them are behaving themselves. I want to show you this lovely advert on one of the garbage bins here. Just have a look at this. Can you see? Did you see me?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Can you see that?
Put it down a little bit. What's it say?
I think it's Debbie.
Still can't see it. Down.
Up,
There.
up.
Oh, Prince Andrew is a nonce. I like it.
That's on one of the garbage bins.
That's
on
one
of the
one
garbage
word.
bins.
That's one word you could use to describe him. That's definitely
So
one.
this is all the scandal of we want him to be extradited to the US and not Julian Assange. So
We don't want him.
We still want that lady that killed that son, you know, the diplomat, the diplomat's wife. We still, you know, they should be sending
The spy and Sukhalis.
Yeah.
the answer clip. That's yes.
CIA spy.
Did
Yeah,
you hear
she's
that?
CIA. She is CIA.
She's
was
CIA. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely.
That's why she got
Absolutely.
protected.
Absolutely. So it's you know, diplomatic immunity for all of them, but us, we're all thrown in prison for it. You know, so many of our supporters were, you know, supposed to answer cases in demonstrations on the streets. So yeah, so we're still under some kind of a curfew. But look, hey, I'm going to let you have another word with one of our other supporters here.
Okay. Thank you so much for talking to us.
My name is Trevor. My name is Trevor, and coming on now is Debbie. Debbie's coming on to you now.
Cool. Thank you. I love being able to talk to them.
Ali's like a professional camera person.
I know she is. Hi, Debbie. Hi, Debbie.
Hi.
How are you? Hi.
Yeah, not too bad, thanks. Having a good time here at Piccadilly Circus. I've just come to talk about my art piece, which is a bit of guerrilla art. So
I love that.
Sorry, Alison. If you'd like to hold that, Alison, a minute. So in Mayfair this week, we've got this thing called the Mayfair Art Weekend. Can you see that okay?
Yes.
Is it coming around the wrong way?
Nope.
Okay, so it's the Mayfair. So they've got this sculpture trail. Yeah.
Mayfair, like on Monopoly, very expensive.
Yeah, expensive. It's the poshest part of London. So in this Mayfair area, we've got this place called Grosvenor Square, which has some art featured. So what happened was they've got these big labels by each art piece saying Mayfair Art Trail. So I decided to do some guerrilla art for Julian.
Nice.
And I called it The Unfair Political Trial. So it's unfair instead of Mayfair. And then I've called it Invisible Man because he's invisible to our mainstream media. Nobody ever talks about him. So I said on their DEA, it's don't extradite Assange. And then I've got a referral to an app there, which is by RT. So it's an app called Get Julian Out of Jail. And then instead of the Mayfair Art Fair QR code, I've got the QR code for WikiLeaks on there. So I've been sticking these labels around. And on Friday, we've got, excuse the noise. On Friday, we're having something called the Mayfair Art Hop. So all the big galleries in Mayfair where all the really posh people go, it's open for the weekend. So what I'm planning to do with a few Assange angels is to go around with these stickers and stand by the sculptures and take pictures of us with the invisible man and try and make some awareness of Julian Assange's case.
I love that idea. That's so creative. I love that. That's amazing.
So we've got to be creative with street art here. So we're coming up with lots of ideas.
I absolutely love that idea. That is absolutely incredible. Thank you so much for doing that. So watch this space. We'll have some more coming up soon. So I'll pass you back to Alison now.
Okay.
There you go.
That's amazing. We were just talking about how we have to start being more creative.
And, a bit of flavor.
London flavor for you.
If you're here in the U.S., we still have Julian's home run tour going on with John and Gabriel. They still have multiple more stops. We are looking at Madison on the 20th, Minneapolis on the 21st, Denver on the 23rd, Oakland on the 26th, San Francisco on the 27th, Los Angeles on 28, 29, and then D.C. 30th, 31st.
No, I think it's the 30th and the 1st.
Yeah, it's not 31 days in June. So I dropped that link to everyone's events if that are nearby them. I do want to give everyone the idea. I know I've been talking about it a whole bunch. Here in the United States, we have the 4th of July, Independence Day. It's the day after Julian's birthday. Please find your local 4th of July events. Please go to like Somerset Bean's website, download graphics, download flyers. They're all pre-made. And go out and just distribute literature. I would recommend taking a cooler full of water because it's going to be really hot and you hand someone a water and they'll talk to you for 2 minutes. But posters, water, and hit the 4th of July events that are in your community and just talk with them about Julian's situation. But I do, before we switch back to Allison, this is actually something kind of exciting that we could probably talk about off camera first. But Donald Trump is coming to my county on my birthday weekend. He's going to be at the Lorain County Fairgrounds here in Northeast Ohio a day before my birthday. So nice. I'm gonna plan something and go say hi. I have to gotta look into that a little bit. I don't really know how I'm gonna like word it at this point, I guess. But that's something that I've been thinking about. So that's super cool. I'm pumped about being able to yell at him for like the 100th time in my life.
Get some fake tan. Get some fake tan on you.
Turn yourself orange. Put on an ill-fitting suit with a front butt and go talk to Donald Trump. It'll be fun.
That'd be exciting.
Yeah, hilarious.
Watch out,
there'll be FBI there though.
Oh, come on. The domestic terror stuff we've got going on, they're already everywhere anyway. We're all screwed.
I know, joking. We're all screwed.
We are.
We're absolutely stuffed. Everywhere, we're stuffed. Well, on the birthday weekend here for Julian, we have a picnic on Parliament lawns, which will be lovely. And then there's a party at Belmarsh as well. And we'll be doing a regular at 4 here, on the Saturday, just to tell everyone else about, Julian and how long he's been in prison, and it's his birthday. So it's going to be a good day, I think, for letting people letting them know about the story, Julian, because, a lot of people don't know. Every day we just repeat the cycle of saying who he is, where he is, why he's there, and what's going to happen. And most people don't know that. It's amazing
how many people don't know. It really is amazing. I tell people that all the time. I get one of two people, somebody who's like never heard of him, or maybe they've like heard his name, but they're not really sure where they heard it from. Or there's people who are just grossly misinformed, and there's no in between. You know what I mean? There's very rarely somebody who's like, oh yeah, I know who he is, and blah, blah, blah. Like it's very rare that happens. It's usually they've never heard of him, or they know and they hate him, and they have been told like every lie and they believe them all. And Yeah, but there's a ton of people that just don't know, and media is like a huge part of that problem, which should be suspicious to everybody. Like, that's sus as fuck, because forget the fact that he's a journalist and this affects the future of their profession. So you would think that it's like self-interest, they would want to cover this, but it's a story. This is a huge story. This is a historic court case. This will be the first time that a publisher is charged under the Espionage Act. It's an Australian publisher being charged under United States laws. It's the United States like requesting or demanding like global dominance over
jurisdiction.
And over journalism and information. Yes, it's fucking crazy. And the fact that they're not covering that, to me, that's obvious. There's a reason they're not covering it, you know. This is a massive story, and any journalist who even almost thinks that they're worth a damn should be talking about this. I don't even care if you're a finance journalist, you should be talking about this. I don't care if you're a real estate journalist, you should be talking about this. This is a huge deal.
There's actually more non factual coverage, like you're pointing out, like from business and technology sources than there is from mainstream media. Like Business Insider covers Julian's case a whole bunch. If I have that
Wired, I think it's called Wired magazine or something. They've covered it.
And
Financial Times too.
Like 3 or 4 different like tech talk blogs that always cover it as well. Yeah, and that's actually something that Gabriel has done a pretty good job at, is getting people in the cryptocurrency community to recognize what's happening to Julian.
Yeah.
So I think that that's a really cool bridge that people are finally being able to cross now.
Definitely. Well,
yeah, 100%.
Even in the activist community, though, I think, you know, the way that I'm kind of approaching it now is realizing that none of the people, the normies that are walking around, know who Julian Assange is. It's kind of like our job to let them know, because they're not going to do it through mainstream media. But the more of them who do know, the more the mainstream media will have to cater to them and with the news, you know. So we have to bring them up to speed. And so I just do a very, very simple speech, and it's become a formulaic thing where I say, Julian invented secure Dropbox. Does anybody know everybody know what Dropbox is? Yes, a version of it you use in your life. This was a way for whistleblowers to put in the information that the government was keeping secret from us. And Julian published the information, and for that, he is being held, blah, 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 blah. End of story. You know, a very simple way in is secure Dropbox. He invented it. It's a platform for a place for whistleblowers to securely drop their stuff. And the corollaries to that is, you know, the rest of the story we know, because I think in the activist community, we are so aware of every little, you know, piece of the case. It takes a couple of years, doesn't it, I found, to get really well versed on all of the, you know, the Swedish, the everything, and the order of things and the way that it's been done. But we're talking to ourselves. We're experts, and we're talking to ourselves. So we do a really
get stuck in
simple
that.
thing now.
We do definitely get like where we're just stuck talking in our own circles and like repeating stuff that each other already knows. But yeah, like we've joked about it on the show that like we're like dumb Americans, and we had to like figure out the UK legal system, and we have to figure out all this stuff and try to learn it the best that we can, and like make sure that we know it well enough that we can like convey the information to other people. It's like the whole thing. And you're right, you get into this thing where like I struggle with that all the time, because there's so much that it's hard for me to find like that elevator pitch, you know what I mean, like that quick, like you got to just hit them where, because there's just so much, and my brain, I have severe ADHD, so my brain's like flying all over the place, and it's hard for me sometimes, especially when I get either nervous or worked up. And then like all of the stuff just like blah, 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 it's like I just vomit out all the information as fast as possible, and it's like overwhelming to people.
The other issue like with that's like, I'll just call it like the Kennedy problem. Like the truth is so crazy that when people are faced with it, they don't believe it, and then when you start breaking down,
have to break them in slow
in a way to explain Julian's case, even just any 6-month period of Julian's case or time in the embassy, is just trying to explain it on a small scale and like sound bites is damn near impossible unless you just scream at the top of your lungs for 3.5 minutes.
Yeah,
that's true. We had some children, say 12-year-old girls today with their one of the mothers come. There were about 3 girls, and they were really so interested, and they said really politely and beautifully, would you explain to us,
I love
about
that.
Julian Assange? Well, I said yes, and they were just so sort of caught it straight away. And they said, we're going to go and look up WikiLeaks.org. We're going to go and do an assignment on Julian
Oh,
Assange.
I love
And
that.
it was so gorgeous. And they posed for a photo and everything, it was really brilliant. But on that extrajudicial reach from of America, the extraterrestrial jurisdictional reach, because now it's planetary as well.
Yeah.
Give it a couple decades and it will be.
There was a very interesting story about the Nestle slaves in Africa, the child slavery. The U.S. Supreme Court ruled that because the slavery occurred in Africa, they didn't have the jurisdictional ability to prosecute Nestle because registered in America. So there you have the reverse of what they're doing to Julian. Yeah. I thought that was very interesting because I thought,
It's crazy, isn't it?
You get off being slave trading.
Is it worth a legal question to be like, why can you not prosecute slave owners and American slave owners in Africa, but you can prosecute
an Australian journalist
publishing
that's
for
what
like an
that's what
Icelandic
always
outlet?
To me, it was crazy because Mike Pompeo straight out, like somebody asked him about the First Amendment and he was like, well, that doesn't apply to him. Okay, but our Espionage Act applies to him somehow? How? What? You don't get to have your cake and eat it too. Well, I guess if you're the United States, you do. The empire thinks that it can just do whatever it wants. And they're not wrong. They get away with it. They're getting away with it. It's a slow motion execution of a journalist and they're doing it in broad daylight. Nobody gives a shit. So yeah, I think, that's what it is though. They want to have their cake and eat it too. They want to be able to charge him under our laws, but he's afforded none of the protections. It's bullshit. He's Australian and Ecuadorian. I mean, he had Ecuadorian citizenship. So we have really, you want the United States to have that kind of power? That's terrifying.
But likewise, we should jump on that story, that Nestle story.
We should.
As well as a way of introducing the Julian story.
I'll look into it. We can cover it Tuesday. We'll cover it Tuesday on the show.
Yeah, and hit it on Twitter and everything like that too, because that's a really good way to hijack a feed. We've got someone else. If you want to talk to someone who's who's been big in the homeless, getting housing for homeless people,
absolutely,
and activism. Yeah. Okay. Let's go.
Allie, you're like the best producer.
Thank you.
Hello.
Hello. Hi.
Hello.
Hi. I'm Misty. What's your name?
Oh, hi, Misty. My name's Jack.
Hi, Jack.
Hi,
How's
Misty.
it going? So you've been doing work with the homeless population. How bad is it over there? Because in the United States, it's unbelievable.
Oh, yeah, I think it's quite bad here, too. It's not something I know that much about, like, in a macro sense. I don't know if it's an accurate characterization that I've been doing work with homeless people, but we've been taking over abandoned spaces, and occasionally we give homeless people a space to stay, and they help us keep the places, and we do political we create bases for different political demonstrations and stuff like that.
That's amazing. So you just is it like just abandoned like warehouses, or are you doing abandoned homes too? Do you have a lot of empty houses there? Because we do here.
Abandoned homes is actually illegal, so that can be treated as a criminal offense. But we've done shops. We did a police station this week that we just got evicted from, an enormous police station in South London. And we did a out of business record shop in Oxford Street a couple of weeks ago. And we hung out flags outside of it and banners. We had a banner for Julian Assange. And we got evicted from it once illegally, and then we went back in the second week. And then they evicted us again, and then they boarded up all the windows so we can go back inside.
Of course they did. Andrew, he takes over abandoned spaces and like will sometimes give the homeless people a place to stay, or they'll do like political actions out of them.
That's really cool.
So yeah, that is pretty cool.
Yeah. Thank you.
Definitely.
That's awesome.
Yeah, that is awesome. That's another really like creative idea and like another way to get attention on something. We're learning a lot today, Andrew. Great show, man.
Right.
So good. So what's it like out there? I mean, we were talking earlier about the lockdowns and stuff like that. I mean, how's that like impacted your ability to do even just the stuff that you're doing with the abandoned buildings?
Well, it was pretty dead for the lockdowns. When we were in full lockdowns, I mean, the lockdowns as such have been lifted. During the full lockdowns that we had, the police were very harsh. If you were doing anything out of those spaces, other than just kind of living there as a home and nothing else, then it was considered an illegal gathering under the coronavirus regulations. And so they would go in pretty hard. I knew someone who did a Halloween party with about 800 people. And that got shut down pretty quickly within the first 1 or 2 hours. But yeah, so it was after that. That was in October, obviously, and after that, it was just pretty dead. Nothing much really happened in that sense during the lockdowns. But the lockdown's been lifted. It's just like the last stage of like restrictions or whatever that they've just delayed now lifting for another month or something like that. But I don't even know what is restricted still at this point. But like we're back to doing outdoor demonstrations, which were not allowed during the lockdown. And restaurants are open. I guess you have to sign in, which is, I mean, you're just so used to it now. You don't even remember what normal was like. But
right.
Yeah, there's limited numbers per table. But I mean, largely most of the normal activities, there's a way to do in some way or other. Like now, it's permitted.
Yeah, hopefully this isn't turning into a new normal where everybody just gets used to having to, sign in at every restaurant you go to. And
I think it is.
I mean, if you look at the propaganda, you have Boris Johnson and Joe Biden both saying "Build Back Better."
Yes. Well, and
Slogans.
Trudeau says it. Yeah, lots of them say it. Lots of them say. Angela Merkel says it. All of them. Yeah, it's like the global slogan. It's terrifying.
One of the fun names that Corbett was pointing out for things like that is the World Economic Forum 1 degree of separation. Like just taking something that's being said like that and looking it up on their website in the search bar, and you'll almost always find like
an article or something,
phrases and shit like that, like seated amongst elites for, I don't know, 4 years before it rolls out into the public.
Yeah. And they always start stuff in Australia and the UK and then they bring it here.
Is that true?
Yes.
Like what?
Lots of things.
Bills.
Surveillance. Yeah.
The big
lots
one
of things
right now is like domestic terrorism legislation, and the one that
pre-crime
horrifies me for you guys is they just passed that bill that allows like 18 different departments of the government to
do whatever they
want
in
the financial benefit of Her Majesty, including like rape, murder, human trafficking, torture.
Yeah.
So and that's a law in the UK that scares the hell out of me, because to my knowledge, maybe short of like whatever the police, I can't remember the term that the police get here in the United
qualified
States.
Immunity.
Yeah, qualified immunity. We don't have anything like that yet.
Yeah, it's coming, but yeah. I mean, we kind of do. It's not official, but they can do whatever they want, and there's no accountability if you have any level of power whatsoever. So yeah, but I think it's not always the case, but I think they usually do start things in Australia and the UK, and then they try to bring them here. That's usually the way that it works.
New Zealand as well. That's another testing ground for the New World Order.
Yeah, that sounds funny when you say it, but yeah.
So, we were actually doing this similar thing with Ali, while Julian was in the Old Bailey, while the verdict was getting read out back on January 4th. And I was just wondering what you thought about the way the UK court, if you like know a lot about it, like presented that ruling and found that everything the US said was cool, but they're stopping it on health grounds.
Yeah, there's been so much said about that, and there's only so much that there is to say about it. I mean, any of the people who have been covering the case regularly have pretty much said, I mean, I don't know. I think it speaks for itself, really, personally. What can you say about it? The whole case is just layers upon layers of absurdity and irregularities, and just like breaking all the processes and procedures that are in place and trampling over all the rules. Craig Murray was very confident that it was. I mean, there was this whole. I mean, there are a few things to say about it. There was this whole initiative about cross appealing. Because in principle, I mean, not in principle, like Julian won the case. He won the case against, the ruling was ultimately against extradition. And the grounds for it, in theory, set a precedent. So there was this whole upset about the precedents that it will set for press freedom. Personally, I believe that, you know, I mean, never mind, but that you can't appeal a case that you've won. So, and it doesn't really set a precedent other than at the level of the court that gave the ruling. So if somebody else then loses an extradition case on the basis of that precedent, then they will have a right to cross appeal, not cross appeal, to appeal on the grounds of the precedent to a higher court. So there was all of this talk about the cross appeal, and I was researching, and that wasn't really talked about very much, even by the people. Anyway, I mean, Craig is everything that's happened since then, the fact that he's being held in custody pending, the prosecution's appeal against the judgment that he won, obviously. But I mean, all of this has been said, so many times, it feels like just beating a dead horse, and kind of like a circle jerk. Obviously, it's true. It doesn't make it less true. It just feels redundant to say those things again. Craig Murray's been saying, and he's quite intimately familiar with the workings of the British state and establishment and the different institutions that make it up. And he's always been confident that, it's going to get to the Supreme Court and it's not going to, Julian's going to have to be freed. I don't know what gives him so much faith, because it's been allowed to get this far, and it's obviously like a pig circus sort of thing. So, and they haven't really been following any of the principles of the law or rule of law or anything like that. So if it's been able to get this far, it seems like anything's possible at this point. I am inclined to agree with Craig Murray. I guess I'm just not as confident as he is, and you look at what's been able to be done to him, what they've been able to do to him, and it is just a thoroughly corrupt society and stuff. Oh, bye. You going?
Everyone's going.
Oh, okay. Well, it seems like everyone's going. I don't know. Do I need to give you back your phone?
Eric wants to have another go.
I really
okay. Eric
appreciate
wants
that
to-
perspective, though, really quick, because
Yeah.
everything, the way this trial has played out, you are correct that there can't be an assumption that it's going to stop when it reaches X, because it hasn't, So
Right.
I really appreciate that point of view.
Yeah.
I've just had your earpiece taken away from me.
Yeah,
But
this
it
one. Well,
looks
the
like
other
you're on
one,
with Eric now.
yeah, it's okay.
Eric.
Yeah.
He's about to leave.
Okay. Hi.
Hi.
I just want to add a couple of things. In the United States, you should stop the idea of saying it's the greatest country in the world. I mean, I happen to be, when I lived over there, for me it was because of what I like to do.
These
and
guys
so forth.
don't say that.
So, yeah.
These guys don't say America.
No, I know they don't, but I mean, spread the word.
Spread the word.
They shouldn't be saying that. Okay, it's a fine country, and there are other countries that people like. And the second thing I want to mention, this is very important, is that over here in Britain, a weakness when it comes to getting people to support us on opposing what Israel is doing in Palestine is that we're told over and over again you're anti-Jewish. Now, fortunately, as far as I know, this hasn't happened in the United States, not by prominent figures. Indeed, the best-known Jew in the country, what's his name? Noam Chomsky. Noam Chomsky has said that what the statement made over here about being too apologetic about racism and giving too much ground, he said that's not even remotely anti-Semitic. But perhaps the guy who said that, Chris Williamson, was thrown out of the Labour Party by here in Britain. So in that sense, the United States is better. Take advantage of it. Do criticize Israel for what they're doing. And of course, I don't think there'll be many voices among the Jewish community who will say you're being anti-Jewish. You recognize you're being anti-Zionist, yes, because Zionism is, of course, a form of colonization. You see, it's what the British set up with the Balfour Declaration. And so don't go along with it. Don't fall for that line and get really honest Jews to recognize they should oppose what the state of Israel is doing in Palestine, because remember, the Palestinians are all Semitic. I mean, many Jews are not. But anyway, the point is that this is, don't allow anyone to say to you that you're anti-Jewish, okay? You're not. These people who in Britain who are criticizing what Israel is doing, they are the first to have supported Jews in many respects, right, not only World War II, but afterwards. And if you've heard of the Battle of Cable Street. So, it's ironic, but a tragic irony this happened. Don't let it happen, okay?
One
Thank
thing
you,
I want to share
Eric.
with you, Eric, is that Mumia Abu Jamal is going to phone in to one of the home run for Julian shows in the States. He's going to phone in.
Yeah.
And so come over to yours and we'll watch it together, yeah?
Oh,
Misty
yeah,
can tell you about it.
Yeah,
Yes.
great. Yeah,
The
wonderful
Oakland.
guy, as I say, he's Julian Assange of the United States.
Oh,
Panther
Allie.
Party and so forth, okay? And he was broadcasting live from death row. He was on death row for many years. Now Obama got him off death row, but he's still on life in prison until that's what his position is. So we have to say, he should definitely be freed. But certainly his voice is very important to be heeded. And he also will say to you that when he makes a criticism of the United States, he's not being against the U.S., but the U.S. should regard itself as an equal of other countries, not superior,
Yeah.
Okay?
yes.
Totally.
Okay.
Great advice,
so
Eric.
I
We
think
love you.
We sign out.
we could talk all day, but anyway,
we better.
You're doing great. Long live the American people. Don't fall the un-American tag either, You're on the contrary, some people have been called un-American, like Paul Robeson and Arthur Miller have been the finest Americans. Okay.
Yes.
Thank you, Eric.
True. That's all right.
Oh, I
Eric
love
wanted
him.
to talk. He's great,
Yeah.
isn't he?
I love him.
He's going to be so rapt when he hears Mumia Abu Jamal calling
I know. I'm
Yeah,
excited.
he's gonna
You should film him watching so that and then get his take afterwards.
Definitely going to do that. Make a little video of that one. He is an absolute storehouse of information because of being an activist for 60 years or 70 years here. His flat. I went and did filing for him, and he has everything on Palestinian rights. The way that the Palestine question used to be reported in the 70s, the 60s, whatever, and it was so much fairer. Yeah, and I'm going to get him a website and put some of these newspaper articles online and put them on his Twitter page, etc. It's a huge job. You should see. He's got a massive amount of information.
But that kind of information is so valuable. Like, I would love to see all that stuff. That would be amazing.
So I've been so busy, but we're definitely going to put it together and just show the press, how it was reported much more fairly back in the 60s and 70s. Yeah. So
that's so good.
I've got to kind of go. Everyone's waving goodbye.
Nope, you're fine. You're fine. Go ahead and go. You're fine. We've got some news to cover, so go ahead and go.
Okay.
Yeah, thanks for popping in to talk to us. I love when we get to talk to you guys. It's always fun. Yeah, so we'll see you soon. Yep, love you too. Thanks. Bye, Allie.
Have a good show. Bye-bye.
Bye. Okay, I love her. I love them. I want to go to London.
Right? I can't wait till we can go, till I can personally go to London.
I want to go to London now. I want to go now. I want to be able to protest with them.
Mm-hmm.
And just hang out. Go to a pub, drink some beer with Allie. That would be fun.
Right. I want to read Eric's news articles from the 60s and 70s.
I know.
That sounds exciting.
I bet he's got a ton of stuff too. Like, I bet she's not even playing. I bet it's a ton of stuff. I'm excited. I hope they get some of that stuff going up pretty soon. That is like a pretty big undertaking though. It's a pain in the ass to have to like scan things and keep them organized, and that's a lot. Ugh. Okay, so what do you want to do first? What are we talking about first?
I have some slides up for that illusion of health, basically how they're using healthcare as a form of torture and Belmarsh.
Should we do the domestic violent extremism thing first, though?
Yeah, that's fine. We can do that first.
Okay,
I only have really just one thing. That's all.
Okay, I'm really just avoiding the healthcare stuff or the Julian's health stuff.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm sure you guys have already heard about this. It's been pretty like ginormous on Twitter. Everybody's talking about it. But this is the new from the Director of National Intelligence. The domestic violent extremism poses heightened threat in 2021 report or proposal or whatever the hell they're calling this. So should we read through all of this? Do you think, Andrew? It's only these just couple.
Yeah, no, that's definitely worth reading through all of it.
Okay.
Could you zoom in a little?
Yeah, let's see.
That's perfect.
Better? Okay, so this is the executive summary. The IC assesses that domestic violent extremists, DVEs, who are motivated by a range of ideologies and galvanized by recent political and societal events in the United States, pose an elevated threat to the homeland in 2021. Enduring DVE motivations pertaining to biases against minority populations and perceived government overreach will almost certainly continue to drive DVE radicalization and mobilization to violence. Newer socio-political developments, such as narratives of fraud in the recent general election, the emboldening impact of the violent breach of the U.S. Capitol, conditions related to the COVID-19 pandemic, and conspiracy theories promoting violence will almost certainly spur some DVEs to try to engage in violence this year. The IC assesses that lone offenders or small cells of DVEs adhering to a diverse set of violent extremist ideologies are more likely to carry out violent attacks in the homeland than organizations that allegedly advocate a DVE ideology. DVE attackers often radicalize independently by consuming violent extremist material online and mobilize without direction from a violent extremist organization, making detection and disruption difficult. The IC assesses that racially or ethnically motivated violent extremists, RMVEs, and militia violent extremists, MVEs, present the most lethal DVE threats, with RMVEs most likely to conduct mass casualty attacks against civilians, and MVEs typically targeting few law enforcement and government personnel and facilities. The IC assesses that the MVE threat increased last year and that it will almost certainly continue to be elevated throughout 2021 because of contentious sociopolitical factors that motivate MVEs to commit violence. The IC assesses that U.S. RMVEs who promote the superiority of the white race are the DVE actors with the most persistent and concerning transnational connections because individuals with similar ideological beliefs exist outside of the United States, and these RMVEs frequently communicate with and seek to influence each other. And can I just say, Joe Biden and Ukrainian Nazis. Joe Biden and Ukrainian Nazis.
In a world that made sense, right? Where we weren't ruled by fucking war criminals.
Psychopaths.
Right.
They're all guilty of the stuff that they're talking about right here, but they're going to use it against us. they're going to use this shit against us so that they can continue their own agenda and their own this shit pisses me off. Okay. We assess that a small number of U.S. RMVEs have traveled abroad to network with like-minded individuals, like Joe Biden with Ukrainian Nazis. The IC assesses that DVEs exploit a variety of popular social media platforms, smaller websites with targeted audiences, and encrypted chat applications to recruit new adherents, plan and rally support for in-person actions, and disseminate materials that contribute to radicalization and mobilization to violence. The IC assesses that several factors could increase the likelihood or lethality of DVE attacks in 2021 and beyond, including escalating support from persons in the United States or abroad, growing perceptions of government overreach related to legal or policy changes and disruptions, and high-profile attacks spurring follow-on attacks and innovations in targeting and attack tactics. DVE lone offenders will continue to pose significant detection and disruption challenges because of their capacity for independent radicalization to violence, ability to mobilize discreetly, and access to firearms. Okay, so this is the scope note. As part of the Office of the Director of National Intelligence, ODNI, mission to lead and support intelligence community IC integration and deliver insights, the ODNI has leveraged IC components to provide a comprehensive intelligence assessment on domestic violent extremist DVEs. This assessment was prepared under the auspices of the DNI in consultation with the Attorney General and Secretary of Homeland Security, who are all psychopaths, and was drafted by the National Counterterrorism Center, NCTC, Federal Bureau of Investigation, FBI. They have a great track record. And the Department of Homeland Security, DHS, they do too, with contributions from the Central Intelligence Agency and the Defense Intelligence Agency. The FBI.
That's like the most fucked up PBS line, you know? Like
That's
in
like
contributions
the
from
worst,
CIA agents,
right?
like them.
Yes, but also those are the worst people. No, they shouldn't. No. Okay, where was I? The FBI and DHS lead the IC's counter DVE missions and are thus positioned to bring domestic collection to bear in understanding and addressing this issue. While the NCTC supports them, other IC elements such as CIA and DIA contribute their unique access or expertise, including on ties that foreign elements have to DVEs. All agencies are mindful of the duty to respect privacy, civil rights, and civil liberties, and to act within the authorities granted to them as they seek to put together as complete as an intelligence and analytical picture as is possible. These people are fucking liars. Okay, stop. We have to stop. We have to stop for 1 second. This is fucking crazy. Are they really trying to pretend like they are looking out for your civil liberties and they're not going to use this to spy on you? They're already spying on you. Like, why would this be any different? This is now just going to be used to squash dissent across the board. That's what this is about. You'll see as we get down here and you see like the people that this is targeted at and the vague language. This is exactly what this is going to be used for. And of course, they don't give a shit about your civil liberties. Have they ever? Have they ever? These people have terrible track records. They should not be anywhere near this level of power at all, period, over anything ever.
Well, so to pull another document in with that, we have the 2020
well, should we finish the first document before we do another one?
National Defense Counterintelligence Strategy 2020 to 2022. And it specifically says regional adversaries and ideological motivated entities such as hackers, public disclosure organizations pose a growing threat to the United States. These actors are increasingly able to advance their goals due to the proliferation of more effective and commercially available cyber and surveillance technologies. And then we have, scrolling fast, sorry everybody, down here on page 8, a number of actors targeting the United States is growing. Russia and China operate globally to use instruments of national power to target the United States and have a broad range of sophisticated intelligence capabilities. Other state adversaries such as Cuba, Iran, North Korea, and non-state actors such as Hezbollah, ISIS, and Al-Qaeda, as well as transnational criminal organizations and ideologically motivated entities such as hacktivists, leaktivists, and public disclosure organizations pose a significant threat. Additionally, foreign nationals with no former ties to foreign intelligence steal sensitive data and intellectual property. I just
totally
read that
normal
just to
country.
include it in the end of it, but
yeah.
So last year, right, everyone that wanted to publicly disclose something became equal to Al-Qaeda and international criminal cartels. And then this year, they're writing the paperwork for all of us to get hit with drones.
Yeah.
So here's what that sounds like.
Let's look at the rest of this so we can get through it real quick. I don't know. I don't remember if I figured to finish all that, but we're going to pretend like I did. Because This is fine, but okay. So, domestic violent extremists are U.S.-based actors who conduct or threaten activities that are dangerous to human life in violation of the criminal laws of the United States or any state, appearing. Pay very close attention to all of this very vague language. Appearing to be intended to intimidate or coerce a civilian population and influence the policy of a government by intimidation or coercion. So what does that mean exactly? Like, does that mean if you go protest your government that you can, does that count as coercion of your government? This is all very vague. Okay, so, or affect the conduct of a government by mass destruction, assassination, or kidnapping as per the definition of domestic terrorism in 18 U.S. Code 2331. Mere advocacy of political or social positions, political activism, use of strong rhetoric, like strong rhetoric. What does that mean? Or generalized philosophic embrace of violent tactics may not constitute violent extremism and may be constitutionally protected. While the majority of DVEs fall into one threat category, some draw upon or inspired by ideological themes found in other threat categories. So this is who they're targeting, okay, or talking about. So racially or ethnically motivated violent extremists. DVEs with ideological agendas derived from bias, often related to race or ethnicity, held up by the actor against others, including a given population group. Okay. Animal rights, environmental violent extremists. DVEs seeking to end or mitigate perceived cruelty, harm, or exploitation of animals, or perceived exploitation or destruction of natural resources and the environment. Abortion-related violent extremists, DVEs with ideological agendas in support of pro-life or pro-choice beliefs. Anti-government.
Real quick,
go ahead.
that, if you go back to that abortion one, that just shows the both sidesism.
Right.
Of
It's
what
everybody.
All of this is. How it's not a tool to go after right-wingers, and it's not a tool
Pro-life,
to stop the commie threat.
pro-choice.
It's
Right.
literally to stop anyone that gives a fuck about an issue.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. So anti-government, anti-authority violent extremists. DVEs with ideological agendas derived from anti-government or anti-authority sentiment, including opposition to perceived economic, social, or racial hierarchies, or perceived government overreach, negligence, or illegitimacy. Are you fucking kidding me? We should all, again, not advocating for violence, but who this is what troubles me, is because a lot of people have said this to me since I've been talking about this online. Oh, it's only violent people. Okay, who decides what is violent? And how many times have we seen cops come to a protest and turn things violent? So no, I'm not accepting that as like this is fine. This is not fine. We don't define what's violent. They define what's violent. And that can be anything. Like there are some states where if you even, if a cop hands you something and you take it from them, that can be considered an arrestable offense. So it's a blanket, and the vagary of it is really concerning. That's the big part, is it's like perceived and appears, and it's very vague. It's very scary. This is legitimate authoritarian bullshit here. Like that's what's happening.
Written like the Mueller report.
Yeah. It's legal speak. It's just like they just want to give themselves all of the power, and they, you know what I mean? So militia violent extremists are DVEs who take overt steps to violently resist or facilitate the overthrow of the U.S. government in support of their belief that the U.S. government is purposely exceeding its constitutional authority and is trying to establish a totalitarian regime, oppose many federal and state laws and regulations, particularly those related to firearms ownership. They are trying to establish a totalitarian regime.
I'm about to take
that's what this is.
Just because they clip it so well. The U.S. government is purportedly exceeding its constitutional authority and establishing.
That's exactly what's happening, and so this is their like
Twitter banner, like fuck these people.
Okay, yes, because they're like it covering their ass before, because this is what they're doing, and so now they just want to make sure that you can't oppose them. Anarchist violent extremists, DVEs who oppose all forms of capitalism, corporate globalization, and governing institutions which are perceived as harmful to society.
And
you're harmful to society. Fuck what?
That right there shows you that it is not a left or right game anymore.
Right.
Like they're literally saying if you are anti-capitalist or pro-capitalist, anti-globalist, which is like the right-wing position, right?
It's everybody. This is a blanket attack on dissent, period.
Yeah, just flat out. They literally list both sides of the argument, and they're like, we're coming for both of you. What are you going to do about it?
Yeah. Okay, so sovereign citizen violent extremists, DVEs who believe they are immune from government authority and laws. And then this is the one that all other domestic terrorism threats. Here we go. If you weren't already included, this is your time to shine. DVEs with ideological agendas that are not otherwise defined under one of the other domestic terrorism threat categories, including a combination of personal grievances and beliefs with potential bias related to religion, gender, or sexual orientation. So basically just everybody else. Like, just if you weren't included over here, this is where we get you. I mean, seriously, ideological agendas that are not otherwise defined under one of the other domestic terrorism threat categories. So, I mean, they can just make up whatever the fuck they want and say, oh, well, you're just all other domestic terrorism threats. That's your category. And all of this is incredibly vague. And people, if you're pretending like this isn't a big deal, this is a big deal. And if you voted for Joe Biden, you voted for fascism. I'm sorry. Please come to terms with that, though, and learn from this. That's all I'm asking. Learn from this shit. When they come at you at 2020 in 2024 and they try to tell you you have to vote for the cop and boy Wonderspook because of said Republican threat, please tell them to fuck off. Please tell them to fuck off. You can't vote your way out of this, clearly. Sorry, that was my tirade for the day.
No, I like it because it's fucking true. It's literally like they wrote down Main Core. Like if you know the Nixon era Main Core program, where back in the Nixon era, before they had this massive proliferation of technology, they put the name of every single activist and politically motivated person, right, that wasn't in the two-party establishment on a literal list, and had planned in the event of government contingency to just mass arrest all of them. Like, that was a plan by the US government under the Nixon administration before they had their totalitarian web net of data collection, the Track Trace Database Society, right? So what does that, this is what Main Core looks like now. If you are a person that has a belief in a thing, we're going to get you. And things like this are designed to cause a chilling effect, right? They're designed to have people that want political change to happen to be like, well, I'm not violent, but like, 98% of those other words were vaguely describing what I do. So fuck them. Like, fuck that. Like, we need to make a mockery of this in and of itself.
Yeah. And I mean, this also brings up the question of pre-crime again. Like, are you going to, like, if you make a snarky comment on Twitter that they decide that they can interpret in a way that means that you're planning some kind of something, like, or whatever.
When there's a pro-Palestinian activist that releases a very polite statement about how AOC walked back her support of Palestine and is supporting Israeli apartheid, then gets met by a fucking state capitol police banging on his door saying, why are you threatening AOC with violence? Right
I think the people that went to his house were highway patrol, but they had been sent by the Capitol Police.
That initiated the investigation that had those police officers go there.
Yeah. And the fact that an elected official can go to her email list, her massive email list, and say, hey, people are saying mean things about me on the internet. You should go report them. That's crazy talk. Like, that's ridiculous. This is, I don't know why this isn't terrifying to more people. I know a lot of people probably have no idea what's happening, like that this is even a thing. But even in our circles, people, I mean, there are a lot of people who just don't seem to care, don't seem to notice that this is, y'all, we're like even close.
The executive order that I put in the show doc every single week, like, that's fucking insane. Like, they literally made the hyperlink so long that you can't paste it into comment sections because it exceeds 300 characters.
They took away your habeas corpus. I mean, seriously, this has been going on for a long time. They have been stripping you of all of your rights, like, very quietly, but out in the open. Like, just little by little, they just take chunk after chunk after chunk. And that's why they're doing it that way, because they know they can't. If they do it all at once, people will fight back. People will have a problem with that. But they're doing it little by little, and they're chipping away in it. And we're like, seriously, I know everybody jokes about 1984 and Huxley and all this stuff. We are so close to like like legit authoritarianism in this country.
Yeah,
We're
if not already there.
We're already there, but I mean like legit, like where you can't leave your house and you can't, like, it's like, you know what I'm saying? Like, and that's not hyperbolic. Like, we're not that far from that. I mean, we have, again, we talk about this all the time, the anti-protest laws and all of the anti-speech laws, all the anti-BDS laws that they're trying to pass, all of this stuff with the lockdowns and I mean, it's seriously, you guys, we are very, very close to just, I mean, this is the fall of this empire. Think about it. The United States is like the largest empire the world's ever seen. No question about it. This is going to be an unbelievably painful destruction of empire if we don't try to mitigate that in some way, you know? Like,
and it's going to end up collapsing. And if it can last another 7 years, there's going to be an Amazon drone facility in every single town. Like, what's it going to look like once society takes 3 steps down and Amazon has 400 drones in every city and thousands in major ones?
Yeah, it's terrifying. I mean, our country is under complete corporate capture. Well, I guess I can't say complete, because there are some things that are hanging on. Like there's like some people who are trying to fight back against that. But government and all of that stuff, complete corporate capture. There is no aspect of your government or the system that it runs that is not touched by corporations. And that is, I mean, Mussolini, that is fascism, when state meets corporate power. And that's where we're at. That's why when people talk about how Facebook and Twitter are private companies, I want to like punch them in the face. Like, are you kidding? No, they're not. I've never punched anybody in the face. So I'm not saying that for real. But that makes me angry, because they're not private companies. They are completely intertwined with our government. 100%. Henry Kissinger sits on the board of the Atlantic Council, who then partners with Facebook to like figure out what's fake news and shit. That should terrify everybody. That it is like, it's a complete intertwine. Google and Facebook spend a ton of money on lobbyists. They buy politicians. They're completely, they influence all of our policy. And that's scary shit. And it's, I don't know why. I know it's because of propaganda. We've all been propagandized to think that like this is normal and this is fine and this is the only way that it can be, and just, you know, shut up and play another game of Candy Crush, you know? But that's, sorry, I guess I just went on another tirade.
I will not shut up and play Candy Crush, Missy. I will not.
Candy Crush on shrooms, though, is actually pretty fun, though. I'm not gonna lie. At least it was the one time I did it.
Yeah.
Like,
it seems pretty intense.
Yeah, it was pretty fun. Anyway,
do we want to do the illusion of health? Do we want to?
Yeah.
Let me.
I hate talking about the health stuff, man.
Ready. Well, this isn't inherently about his health. This is about the
in general, but still.
Yeah. Well, I was just trying to add a silver lining.
Yeah, no, I get it.
Assange and Belmarsh, an illusion of care. This article is concerned with the way that Julian Assange, founder of WikiLeaks, was isolated inside of the healthcare unit of Category A Belmarsh Prison over a period of months following his imprisonment in April 2019. Assange was admitted to the unit in April, readmitted at the end of May, and placed in effective solitary confinement in the unit in July 2019 until the end of January 2020. This article follows a previously published one by The Indicator around the Freedom of Information responses from the prison authorities, indicating that the regime of isolation was imposed outside of proper prison rules and law. And then I'll put the link to this article in chat for everyone so you can get to those other ones. But this article looks at the procedural and regulatory and regulations around admission, intervention, and discharge from Belmarsh Healthcare Unit. And it makes the case that Julian Assange's prolonged isolation in the unit amounts to degrading treatment.
I think it amounts to torture. Because can we just talk about for a second what it says at the top there? Let's see. Over a period of months following his imprisonment in April 2019, Assange was admitted into the unit in April, readmitted at the end of May, and placed in effective solitary confinement in the unit in July 2019 until the end of January 2020. July 2019 until the end of January 2020. That is a long ass time to be in effective solitary confinement.
And then had until the end of February 2020 to prepare for the most important court case
against the United States government.
Against
and you can't
every aspect of the U.S. government.
Yeah. And every aspect of the Five Eyes, really, because it's really all of them coming at him. But seriously, I mean, can you imagine trying to prepare? You can't, like, you have like a month or so to prepare a defense against the United States government on espionage charges. And you know that the court system is corrupt as shit, and you know that you have everything stacked against you. And I mean, seriously, the things that they've done to him, and the fact that he hasn't been able to participate in his own defense in any really substantive way in a long time, really, since he's been arrested. I mean, I'm sure that there were meetings and stuff. Obviously there were in the embassy, and I'm sure that they talked about like what would happen and what we would do and all, but you know that since he's been arrested, he has essentially not been able to participate in a real way in his own defense against the United States government. And
he didn't even get to meet with his lawyers from the time that the trial ended in the beginning of March 2020 until it started again in September of 2020. He was for 6 months.
There was like 6 months that they weren't able to speak at all. He was given a laptop with the keys glued down. He doesn't have access to any of his legal paperwork. They won't give him like the stuff that he need, like the actual court, like the files and the court paperwork and all of it. They won't even let him have that so that he can, try to make sense of all that and organize and all, you know what I'm saying? Like it's, just the because to me, that's a human rights violation. I don't know if like technically, legally, it's a human rights violation, but you should be able to mount a defense. You should be able to participate in your own defense. Right? It's innocent until proven guilty. And the extradition has already been denied, and he's still in fucking prison. He's still in prison, in a supermax, no less. I mean, Jesus, really? You're going to put him in a supermax? He has no history of violence whatsoever. He's a publisher and an intellect. Like that's like, he's like just a thinker. He's like never done anything like physically violent to anybody.
And then the people in that supermax prison understand being those violent people to the point that they organize to get Julian treated in better ways. Like the criminals, for what it's
terrorists, worth. Murderers. Like this is Belmarsh. This is the Gitmo of the UK. So I'm not saying that everybody there is bad or guilty or that they've done what they've done. I'm sure that there's a lot of people in there who have also been railroaded like Julian Assange. But I would venture to say that there are at least some pretty terrible people in there, right? And they organized on Julian's behalf because he was being treated like shit. That should tell you something. When somebody who's also living in the Gitmo is like, oh, that guy's getting it worse than I am. I mean, he's obviously being treated unfairly, and it's disgusting. And it's obviously intentional. They're obviously trying to break him. They're obviously trying to, I mean, this is it kind of works twofold for them because it beats him down, and it keeps him silent. And it, they can, like they said in the Straffer email, they're just going to tie him up in legal stuff for 25 years. That'll keep him shut up. That'll keep him shut down. That'll keep him financially in trouble. You know what I'm saying? And they can just effectively just lock him away and throw away the key, and everybody will just forget about him. But also, it's like the chilling effect that we talk about all the time. He's been made the example. He's been made like the person that they're going to, and they're not super obvious about this part. They are doing this out in the open, but they're not super obvious about shoving in your face like, look, this is what will happen to you if you like tell our secrets. But it's just loud enough that I think that journalists hear it, and people who might be whistleblowers hear it, people who might be thinking about doing something like Julian Assange did. Those people, like, it's a very clear signal that this is, if you come for us, this is what will happen to you. And it's the same thing they did to Chelsea Manning. It's the same thing that they do to all of them. Every truth teller. That's what they do.
What's happening to Joshua Schultz right now?
Yeah.
Not even
Daniel Hale.
Convicted of anything. A pre-trial detainee forced to shit in a bag and sit, like, not even kidding, literally urinate and defecate in a bag while in a 6x6 dog cage for 5 to 7 hours if he wants to visit his family. Both ways, with them coming and them going. Yeah.
Well, and Daniel Hale, like, they just decided, oh, well, we're worried about his mental health, so we're going to take him into custody and put him in solitary confinement. Really? Because I'm pretty sure that that's like the worst possible thing you could do to somebody who's like suffering a mental health crisis. Shut the fuck up. That's not why they're doing it.
To Daniel Hale's credit, as you brought this up and you shouted this out, I didn't even know it until you mentioned it, Misty, that Daniel Hale, a motherfucker that was facing Espionage Act charges, couldn't get a job anywhere except being a dishwasher, tried to organize the employees in the kitchen and got himself fired from one of the only jobs he can get.
Yeah, he
because
tried to
was trying
unionize
get
the
better
kitchen
working
staff
conditions
at the
for people
restaurant that
around
he was
him.
working at. He tried to unionize the staff at the restaurant he was trying to work at, knowing that he's like facing this legal mammoth. Like this is like a, fight basically for his life, sort of. I mean, it's not, I don't think he faces that much time, but this will ruin your life. It's already ruined his life, really.
Well,
but then
his
to like
ruling, to talk about that for a little bit before we pull back into this Illusion article, his ruling, the plea agreement that he took doesn't even make sense, right? So the United States government essentially forced Daniel Hale into a plea agreement where they give him a minimum maximum number of years, but then add a caveat that if the United States thinks that it's not enough, even after this agreement's reached, they can impose longer sentencing. So he's pled guilty to these crimes that I don't know if they can or can't find him guilty of legitimately, but accepted a plea deal. And inside that deal, the U.S. government literally says, we're going to fucking drag this out. Like, we're telling you. Well,
and if you don't get the punishment that we think, then we're going to go ahead and charge you with this other bullshit too. And the fact that they're able to do that and that's legal is really troubling. Like, all of this stuff has really opened up my eyes to, I mean, I knew that the legal system was completely corrupt, but wow.
Right.
The things that they're able to do and like the loopholes that they've manufactured for themselves and used as a way to like screw over people is really kind of terrifying. But yeah, I mean, just this is what we always do to all, like any truth teller, anybody who tries to do the right thing. Eric talked about Mamiya, like it's the same stuff, it's the same stuff. So I don't know. It's scary. Let's jump back into that.
Let's do it. Slide number 3, Phantoms and Myths Around Accountability. The year before Assange's arrest and imprisonment in Belmarsh, a prison inspection was carried out in Belmarsh by the Care Quality Commission and the inspection of prisons. The resulting report identified that the healthcare unit was being used for non-clinical reasons and made recommendations admission to the inpatient unit should be for clinical reasons only. In response, the prison authorities published the following action plan. The recommendation is partly agreed as though the healthcare manager will work with the prison staff to ensure that admissions to inpatient units are normally for clinical reasons only. In exceptional circumstances, prisoners may be admitted for non-clinical reasons due to a lack of space. In such circumstances, they will be moved out as soon as possible into the main when the main prison is available. When space in the main prison is available. I suck at reading today. Where an admission to the inpatient unit has been for the safety of the prisoner or others, it will be managed in line with the Prison Services Order 1700 to ensure that all alternative locations are regularly reviewed. PSO 1700 relates to the management of the segregation units. The response suggests that the healthcare unit was used by prison authorities for isolation purposes, and the plan indicates that the prison authorities will continue to use the healthcare unit for such purposes should they so choose. The reincarnation of segregation. The health authorities' admissions policy explains that the healthcare unit will admit men from the segregation unit for mental health concerns, and also it arranges paperwork for prisoners for segregation purposes. A prisoner may therefore come and go from segregation into the healthcare unit, but while he's in there for clinical reasons, he becomes a patient, no longer officially segregated. However, what if such a patient possesses a serious physical risk to others? Ordinarily, official segregation would not have independent oversight by the Independent Monitoring Board. Although we know the previous the FOIAs about that the Independent Monitoring Board only oversees cases in segregation or high security units at Belmarsh Prison. So if different regimes exist in different types of prisons under the care of doctors, does independent oversight exist for those who are very restricted and it may not amount to segregation? The use of such clinical psychiatric space to disappear Assange from view was indicated during his extradition hearing in September 2020. The prosecution mental witness, Dr. Nigel Blackwood, stated that Assange was kept in isolation in the healthcare unit to protect prison officials from embarrassment following the release of footage of Assange videoed by prisoners. Blackwood said the government was concerned about the reputational damage. However, either he did not carry out a check on Assange's admission documentation, or he was misled. Assange's lawyers produced records to show that his admission was on clinical grounds for mental health concerns, but Blackwood's comments nevertheless add weight to the above point that prisoners could be admitted to the healthcare unit for clinical reasons and be subjected to a restricted regime amounting to segregation without independent oversight. I'm going to jump back to us real quick. And if you remember during the trial, I believe the judge actually completely dismissed the statements about Julian's preparation, I guess would be a term to use there, that he had actually been hiding a razor blade in one of the books in his room, and the judge threw that out of court. She was like, yeah, that's a thing, it's a gray area, we're not gonna keep going into that one. So that's always important to point out too, that the prosecution admitted Julian was detained additionally based on the fact that prisoners had access to contraband, which is the prison's problem, right? Which people shouldn't even fuck be in these places, but yeah.
Yeah.
So, do you want to read for a minute? I'm like dying. I need some water.
Yeah, I can. Hang on. I gotta. It's not pulling up on my screen, so I'm gonna have to read it from my phone.
I'll screen share. I'm sorry.
No, you're fine.
I got you, dude.
It's showing up on the show. It's just not. Okay, there we go. Okay, here we go. Had Assange not been admitted under the care of a doctor, he would have been referred to as a lodger, according to the healthcare admissions policy. It describes lodgers as, quote, occasionally the prison management team would locate a prisoner without any acute healthcare needs in the healthcare inpatients unit for operational or security reasons. Those prisoners will be described as, quote, lodgers in healthcare, unquote, and will not be managed by this policy. Instead, they will be managed by the prison regime of the location where the prisoner would have been located had they not been placed in the healthcare inpatients unit. So who are the lodgers? Such cases may fall under, quote, adult safeguarding, end quote. Prison staff have a common law duty of care to prisoners that includes taking appropriate action to protect them. Prisoners have a range of processes in place to ensure that this duty is met. These also ensure that prisoners who are unable to protect themselves as a result of care and support needs are provided with a level of protection that is equivalent to that provided in the community. Such individuals often have support when living in the community. Many prison inspection reports identify the non-clinical use of healthcare units for them, while some prisons have units specifically for such vulnerable populations who may pose no threat to others but are at risk themselves. Assange was not admitted as a lodger with social care needs. Given Assange was an inpatient under the care of a psychiatrist, his care plan makes no sense. In October 2019, Nils Melzer published a statement on the conditions in which Assange was being held in the healthcare unit. Quote, since his transfer to the healthcare unit, Mr. Assange's state of health has further deteriorated and has recently entered a downward spiral, which may well put his life in danger. Although Mr. Assange has served his sentence for bail violation and is now detained exclusively in relation to the U.S. extradition request pending against him, he is reportedly held under oppressive conditions of isolation involving at least 22 hours per day in a single occupancy cell at the prison's healthcare unit. His isolation is only interrupted by daily walks of 45 minutes, church services, as well as meetings with his lawyers and social visits. He is not allowed to socialize with other inmates, and when circulating in the prison, corridors are cleared and all other inmates locked in their cells, end quote. No clinical or prison procedures can explain this regime. He posed no threat to anyone and was not under threat himself from prisoners. At what point were Assange's expressed wishes that he return to a house block and join the general population? Under the admissions policy, he had the right to discharge himself. Quote, when a patient with a physical illness, primary care mental illness, or acute substance misuse problems wants to be discharged against medical advice, they will undergo capacity assessment. And when they are deemed to have the capacity to make an informed decision, they will have to sign a disclaimer before being discharged, end quote. Assange's capacity was never in question during his extradition hearing. Medical sessions and records would confirm whether any evaluation resulted in a clinical decision to not discharge him over the extensive period of several months. Why would a patient be denied the right to self-discharge for no clinical reason and for such a period of time? The admissions policy claims that discharge is at, quote, the forefront of all patients' plans, end quote. In the end, Assange's release from healthcare was the result of intervention by campaigning inmates. It is possible that Assange's condition was so severe he could not discharge himself, but the omission of this in his medical records would amount to negligence and raise further questions about his treatment.
The inmates organized.
Yeah, I still love that.
Yeah, like as scary as it is, for as dark of a story as what has happened to Julian for a decade now, like that should be horrifying. Like how Misty said, these people in these circumstances understood how much fucking worse he was being treated. And these people that are supposed to be like the worst of the worst have to put them in this cell, have no ability for empathy, terrorism. Individuals are like, you can't do that to a person. Like what? You can't do that. And that's just mind-boggling. Like as much as I don't want to know, like I want to know what the fuck the conditions of those healthcare units were, because that was Niels Melzer's like second big push that literally went alongside of all these other reports of the inmates organizing, because of just how heinous that situation was.
Yeah, I mean, it has to be pretty bad. Again, when you have people who are incarcerated in the British Gitmo, complaining about the treatment of another person. I mean, I'm sure that they're all treated really badly, you know? And then for Assange to be so much worse off that people are striking, like going on strike, you know, to make sure that he's treated better. That says something to me. And it's then, just...
And then the media doesn't cover it.
Right. But to me, it's also very obvious too, because, you know, we go back to Breitzer denying the extradition and then also denying bail. But you just said that he's a suicide risk. And why do you think he's a suicide risk, you dumb twat? It's because you have him in the British Gitmo. And so it makes no sense if you're going to deny extradition because he's a suicide risk to then deny him bail instead of letting him go home and, you know, get treatment or rest, recuperate, be with his family. That makes absolutely no sense whatsoever. If you're going to deny the extradition, then that means it's over. At least, I mean, I understand that they're able to appeal and all of that stuff. I get it. But why wouldn't you just release him, even on house arrest or whatever? Especially given the fact that we're in the middle of a goddamn pandemic. Like, everything's shut down. A lot of flights are done. He's one of the most recognizable people on planet Earth. What do they think is going to, like, where's he going to go?
Well, it shows to give Susie Dawson credit for the term, the counter-reinforcing propaganda, right? Mm-hmm. So you had Russiagate screaming into the wind about Donald Trump's working with Russia, right? And then while all of these events were happening under the Trump administration, the internet was chanting slogans of where we go one, we go all, and promoting message boards and trying to distract people into a literal new silo of censorship. So it's you can see the fake actors in all of this, because that should have been what was getting posted everywhere across the internet, not Q sent me. It should have been Julian Assange is being tortured under healthcare circumstances. So it shows you the power that these people still could in the future wield, to make people think that they're defending their liberty while at the same time
Y'all, they're
supporting the destruction.
so, I know I've been saying this a lot lately, but they are so good at this. They really are. I mean, if you examine it, like really, like just like pick like one news story and then just go and look at it and force yourself to look at the propaganda, force yourself to look at the narrative management, because that's really what it is. I don't even think that it's just propaganda. It's narrative control. They are controlling your thoughts. Essentially, they're telling you what to think. And it's so pervasive, especially if it's like a big story, if it's something that's getting a lot of coverage or if it's something that's like important. They're very good at knowing where to place stories, when to place stories, how often to place stories. You know what I mean? Like how to cover it, when it's all of the stuff. They really are. It's kind of scary. Like I've really gotten super interested in that over the past couple of years. And like I've said before, I've gone back and looked at the smear campaign, that like the decade-long smear campaign against Julian, and it's really good. Like they've been very effective at like knowing when to drop stories, when to drop which stories, like how like, you know, how to do it in a way that it's very kind of covert. It's very kind of like it's not super in your face, but it's just very effective. They're really good at knowing. It's emotional manipulation on many levels. I mean, that's just part of it, but I think a lot of it is just emotional manipulation. They do that with a lot of things. And that is extremely true of fear. They use fear against you all the time. If you ever, if a politician is ever asked a question about something, and if you notice, they will very often start with like fear response terms, like national security threat, you know, that kind of stuff. Like we have to, or they'll say we have to protect something or whatever. And they do that because that makes you afraid. And then everything that they say after that will hit differently because your brain is now in like lizard brain mode, and you've like a fear response has been started. And so now everything that they say next, you're going to be more apt to buy into because you're afraid. And that's just one of the many tools that they use. But fear is one of the big ones. They use that all the time.
And the big way to counter that, at least in my opinion, is Julian's idea about becoming immune to the observation of injustice, and that as you see injustice happen and you tolerate it, you
train yourself,
right, to progressively become more and more accepting of intolerance. And it works in the opposite direction. As you start doing anything, right, anything in the face of injustice, you then start moving further and further away from taking inaction. Even
and
if
it
it's
makes you,
don't inherently
it makes it easier
about.
to recognize too. Yes, you'll act more, but it just makes it easier for you to recognize it, because he's so right about that. People make it normal. They normalize it for themselves. It's like, oh, this is just the way things are, or whatever. When you see the next black guy killed by a cop and you don't do anything, you don't say anything, you just, oh, well, you know, our cops suck, but what are you going to do? That it trains you to like just justify and normalize that kind of stuff. And that's why we are kind of in the position that we are. That's why I get so like freaked out about narrative management, because I think that really is it. Like that's it. That is everything. Genuinely.
We got one slide left for this.
Let's go, Joe. Am I reading or are you reading?
Well, I'll read it. It's just like a list of stuff.
Oh.
So I'll probably still butcher it, but I'll totally read it.
I can read it. I don't care.
No,
I'm doing good reading today, actually. I'm pretty proud of myself.
Okay.
I've done well.
I won't.
No. It's fine. Go ahead. No.
No, you got this.
All right. Prolonged isolation of Assange in the, quote, healthcare, what's not really, unit amounted to cruel and degrading treatment. No clinical reason has justified refusing discharge at his request. No clinical reasons has justified his prolonged regime of isolation. Evidence indicates that there was no plan for Assange to be released from the unit, putting him at risk of being indefinitely isolated there. That's a huge one. I'm just going to briefly talk about that. Like, that's what's kind of going on right now. If there's no like light at the end of the tunnel, that is a whole other level of torture. So I think that's a big one that we don't talk about enough. So no prison procedure or instruction explains Assange's prolonged location in the healthcare unit. No prison procedure or instruction explains Assange's prolonged deliberate isolation while in the unit. The deterioration of Assange's mental health resulted from his prolonged isolation in the unit. Because he was admitted under the care of a psychiatrist, he could not be recognized as segregated despite his regime of isolation. And he had no independent oversight and was entirely dependent upon decisions made by those authorities preventing him from leaving the unit, and which kept him isolated for reasons that cannot be explained either through clinical or prison procedures. So basically, this was like a deliberate attempt to break him mentally. He had no self-determination. He had no ability to make choices for himself. They kept him there. They kept him isolated, and they kept him with no like end game. Like there's no on this date you're going to be done or on this. And so like that's what he's dealing with right now. And I'm a true crime nerd, so I've actually watched like a ton of stuff about the prison system. And when you have like they worry about this for people who are in prison for life with no possibility for parole, that causes like a mental health, it can cause mental health deterioration, because it's like there's nothing to look forward to. It's like you're just there and you're in this like purgatory. So yeah, I think that this whole not ever like the appeal right now, there's no date for that. It could happen anytime. We have no idea when. So he's just there left in limbo.
That's
and that can be very mentally
driving me fucking crazy.
Yeah, me too.
That nowhere can you find a piece of information. Like there's people fucking sending emails. It's like the appeal's happening on June 6th. Like June 6th a fucking Sunday.
Yeah. Yeah, and that happens a lot. Like something will float across the Twitter sphere about, oh, this day is this or this day is that. And actually right now there is no this day.
Yeah.
The appeal can go through anytime.
No this day.
There's no official.
Stuck.
We are. They have, I don't think there's a deadline. Like, I don't think there's any, like, you have to have this done by August 1st, or you have to, there's none of that. It's just whenever, which is fucked up. I don't know how they can do that. But yeah, we're really just in limbo, all of us, like just waiting around to see what's next. And cause it's really difficult to plan or organize actions when you can't, strategically target them at a certain specific thing that you want. You know what I mean? Like right now we can just do the free Assange stuff, but when you're going through a court case, there are different strategical angles that you can take, when you're targeting protests and actions and tweet storms and all of that stuff. And it's just, we don't have any information right now, and it sucks.
Yeah.
Hate it. 0 out of 10, do not recommend.
Right. It's, yeah. So if you get anything about someone saying, even if it's from an Assange group, or something like, hey, this is the date that something is supposed to happen, check. Don't circulate
double,
the
triple
date
check
before because right now the US is literally putting this into this process like this, or the UK or whoever, to cause the ability for there to be an information gap. It's something that they historically do with Julian constantly, right, throughout this decade of imprisonment. Is they turn the heat up to like 900, get the pot boiling, and then can set it each time at a higher and higher degree. Like when Julian, for example, was taken into prison under the original rape allegations in London. I believe that was just before he sought Ecuadorian asylum. The streets were filled with people, right? Like they couldn't do what they're doing now a decade ago, period. Like point blank, flat out, it would not have been possible. So that's why they chip away this way, because they targeted specific groups and told them specific things with specific
about
messaging
Julian
to make that one group not care, to the point that groups that otherwise would previously care are like, well, I don't know, I support President Trump, but like President Trump did this, and I support Julian, and like, it's even down to that level of people that would otherwise support this and fight valiantly for it say, well, but it makes President Trump look bad, and what about 2024?
Right. Well, and people who doubt that this happens, look no farther than targeted ads. That's all this is. It's just targeted propaganda instead of being targeted by my Gillette razor or whatever. You know what I mean? Like we've all seen it happen. If you buy something, like there's been times, you can call me a conspiracy theorist if you want, but there's been times where I've like said something and then I look something up and there's an ad for the thing that I just talked about. I didn't type it in. I just said it out loud. We all know that they're listening on our smartphones and our smart TVs and all of that good stuff. But that's all that is. This is just targeted ads, only it's targeted propaganda. And they are very good at knowing which demographics will fall for which bullshit, and they know which platform to target you on. information, whether you're like a middle-aged mom from Montana, you're going to be on Facebook probably, or if you're, you know, a millennial or something, you might be on Twitter. You know what I mean? Like it's all, they're very, seriously, they're very good at this. They know exactly what they're doing. And we've had people blow the whistle on this stuff. Wendell, I always get it wrong. I think I got it wrong at the Assange thing too. I think it's Potter. Fuck, I don't know why I can't remember. It's either Porter or Potter. And I'm sorry, my dude, for whatever reason, my brain will not like absorb that information. But he was a health insurance lobbyist, propaganda machine. Like that's what he did. He wrote propaganda to misinform the American populace about the Canadian system. And that's what they do. That's exactly what they do. And it's all like poll tested, committee approved. It's focus tested. They know what works. They know what's effective. They know, and it's like a constant bombardment of bullshit from all angles all the time. And nobody's immune to it. Like even me, like who like is very like I've like been really interested in like looking into this. I'm not immune to it either. It's very good, and it can be very subversive, and it's hard to like pick it up all the time.
Yeah, especially when they try to throw some big ass narrative change at people, like the 18-month-long 9/11 that we just lived through. that many people. Right, I'm speaking from a position of privilege here in Ohio that many states and countries around the world have never come out of. If you look at California, if you look at New York City, if you look at some European countries, the UK, for example, they get a bereavement before they're put back into their personal cells they call a house.
Yeah, sucks. That's what we're up against, which is terrifying because that's a lot, you know, because they are very good at it, and it's really difficult to get people to see. It really is. It's really hard.
But it's fun punching so far above our weight class.
It is.
Yeah.
All the time. And sometimes it works. Like sometimes it works. There's times I punch above my weight class on Twitter, and I'll get somebody to say a free Assange, or I'll get somebody to even just respond to me. Like Ken Klippenstein responding to me. Thanks, dude. Because that got Julian Assange's name out there. People, and it made you look like an ass. But I mean, that helps. So I don't even care. Like I said on Twitter, you don't have to like me or my approach. You can tell me to fuck off, but follow it with free Assange. I don't care. So I'll punch above my weight class. I'm not scared. I'll do it. We have to. It's that big of a deal, I think, to me.
Yep.
I wish it was to more people. I'm not asking people to like make it their sole issue. I understand that it's not everybody's sole issue, but just talk about it. Say something. If you're a content creator and you're not covering Julian Assange on a fairly regular basis.
That's the thing about the event with Mumia that's making me like the most excited.
Yeah.
Because that's a bridge I've been trying to figure out how to build for not necessarily with him, but like those like intersectional issues, like real intersectional.
We've talked about that, like trying to figure out how to get like Daniel Hale more attention, how to get Reality Winner more attention, how to get Joshua Schultz, like how to like make this like a we're all in this together fight, because strength in numbers, y'all. And this is all like, it's all the same fight. It's different people, different circumstances, but it's all the same fight. It's the fight for management of narrative and against propaganda. And so if we can figure out a way to build, and again, like you had the great idea of like cross-pollinating like ideas or issues or whatever, like having like a healthcare and a Julian Assange event, because like I just said, there's a whistleblower who shows that, you know, we've been lied to about healthcare in this country repeatedly. We're still being lied to in this country. They still try to pretend like we can't afford it. How are you going to pay for that? Fuck off.
Well, that's
nobody ever says that.
Jackson Hinkle never hits us back whenever we try to do anything. Because that was that like attempt to start.
Yeah, I mean, we did. I mean,
but I guess you
we did the force the vote protest and
slinging AOC and Donald Trump at the same time. Like it's you know, can't have a crew doing too much.
I'm doing it.
No, I know it was a joke.
I know. All right, did we get through everything? I'm pretty proud of us. I think we did.
We did. That's everything.
We crushed it. Good show, my friend. I love talking to Allie and Team London and Eric and all those people. They're amazing.
Just means I have extra work for Tuesday because I had that like rolling forward for like 4 weeks.
Oh, yeah. Well, I think coming up, guys, Tuesday maybe we're gonna try to dive into some of these other like a Daniel Hale or whatever, and give you guys the information about what exactly is happening in that case, where they're at in the process, what we can do to help, that kind of stuff, because they're not getting any attention either. And right now, like we said, we're kind of in limbo with Assange. So as much as we still need to like talk about the tour and all that stuff, I would like to dive into some of these other whistleblowers and journalists across the globe who are getting kind of shoved under the rug and not talked about. So you guys can look forward to that coming up pretty soon. I'm pumped because I don't know a ton about like a Daniel Hale. I know like the basic bare bones and stuff, and I've like informed myself, but I would like to like really dig in and figure out like what's all going on, who he is, how he got to this place, like that kind of stuff. I like people's origin stories. It's my favorite. Anyways, so yeah, I think we're done for today. I'm Misty. You can find me on Twitter at Sarcasm Stardust. I have a show called Facts on the Ground with Jesse Zerwell. We just interviewed Tara Reid, which was awesome. We're gonna have Shahid Buttar back on next week, and some other people that I'm forgetting because my brain is fried. I also have Bitch with Comrade Misty on every Wednesday at 7 p.m. Last week I had Fee and Sky Daddy on, and it was so much fun. It was so much fun, in fact, that we might actually make it like a regular thing. I don't know if we can do it weekly because everybody's pretty busy, but we may be able to do like once a month, have them pop by and do like a once a month show. But there's a bunch of people that I want to have on coming up. I would love to have like Rome on, and Mandy, and even like Mona, and like just a bunch of people, just like have fun and have like a Twitter bitch fest like on air, which is fun. It's so therapeutic, really. It really is. So also billboards, the Ohio billboard campaign is still up. I am in contact with our rep. We don't have enough to do like another whole 2-week campaign with 3 billboards, but I may try to get the 1 billboard downtown again, because we have enough to do that. I think just 1 more. But Daniel in North Carolina just started his own billboard campaign so I think I may shut Ohio down for a little bit and let it move to like a different demographic, a different state. And maybe we can kind of bounce it around the country, because it's my fundraising kind of slowed way down. So maybe if we can like move it around, it'll renew interest in it every few months, and we can just like bounce it around the country and try to get a few billboards up here and there. You know, I know right now everybody's in kind of a tough place financially, so it's hard to get funding for some of this stuff. But yeah, check out Daniel's GoFundMe for the North Carolina billboards. He got an amazing deal. I guess he has a friend down there. So he got an amazing deal. So we'll get a lot of bang for our buck in North Carolina. So check that out for sure. And I'll keep everybody posted on what I figure out for the remainder. I may just do, because I think even if I do like another 2-week of the downtown billboard, there will still be like, I don't know, like a couple $100 left over. And so I already donated 50 to Daniel, but if there's anything left over that I can't like squeeze out of my billboard company, then I'll just donate it to the Daniel's campaign. So it just kind of goes to the same thing. If everybody's okay with that. Yeah. If everybody's okay with that, like if anybody, I don't know. I don't know why you'd be pissed about that, but you know, whatever. Yeah, that's it. I think that's all I have. Sorry. That was really long.
You're good. You're good. I'm like 6 bottles of water deep and like about to pee my pants. My name's Andrew Smith. You can follow me on Twitter at Andrew Zigmund, Zigmund. You can follow us, I did the hands early, at action_4 Assange. Super pumped to have the UK crew joining us next Saturday. We're going to have a representative with Free Assange EU coming in to talk about the broader events happening across the European Union, not just in the UK, because Germany is up in arms and a bunch of other countries are very fervent with their Free Assange support, and there's even multiple weekly and bi-weekly events across all of Europe. But with that, please don't forget to do what you can with the time and money that you have left right now, because this is pretty much it. They're rolling it all out forward at this point. So, yeah.